Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Tonight, supply chain issues about to impact Valentine's Day. It could be harder for you to get your special someone the bouquet you might be hoping for. Big Fox's Matt Kleindens joins us from Corning with how this shortage is affecting one flower shop.
Good evening, Ann. The shortage is making ordering flowers unpredictable for both businesses and customers. One florist I spoke with said she's hoping customers will order early for Valentine's Day.
Pretty much a guessing game because you never know how much you're going to need.
A supply shortage has made life interesting for florists across the country. At Northside Floral, the shortage has made ordering flowers unpredictable.
If you order early enough, you're almost guaranteed to get it, but at the last minute, it could very well not show up. Or in this temperatures, it could come frozen. You never know what you're going to get.
Cheryl Gens says the store ordered plenty of flowers ahead of Valentine's Day next week, giving residents plenty of flower arrangements to choose from.
We haven't had too much of an impact on us because we ordered it early enough. So we have a nice arrangement of flowers.
Gens, however, urges customers to place their orders for Valentine's Day ahead of time.
We would rather have people order early so that because it's first come, first get.
Gens says her and her team will be at the store all week preparing arrangements for next week. Matt Kleindens, Big Fox, WYDC in Corning.
A local food drive is being organized in honor of a Bradford County activist. Scooter's Food Drive will memorialize Bill Snyder, who passed away in January. Snyder was a strong supporter of child hunger outreach partners and had the food drive planned before his death. The food drive will begin next Monday and run through March 18th. Businesses who are interested in becoming a donation drop-off site are asked to call Liz Terwilliger. The death toll from COVID-19 continuing to climb more than a year into the push to get Americans vaccinated. Charles Watson has more.
Another grim milestone in the fight against COVID-19 as the death toll from the virus surpasses 900,000 Americans. The stunning statistic accelerated by the rapid spread of the Omicron variant, with more than 100,000 deaths coming in just the last 2 months. COVID, now the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer. Despite those figures, public health experts hope the worst is already behind us and the U.S. could enter a new phase of the pandemic in 2022.
COVID-19 is circulating year-round right now. I think eventually it will become a wintertime disease. I think we need more testing capacity. I think we're going to continue to need to be vaccinating people well into the future.
The U.S. is now more than a year into its vaccination push, with policymakers running out of ideas on how to convince people still on the fence about getting a shot. According to CDC data, about 64% of Americans are fully vaccinated. Just over a quarter have gotten a booster shot. Fortunately, the latest wave from Omicron appears to be on the way out. Cases and hospitalizations are declining in 49 states, though deaths are still at their highest point since the Delta surge.
The COVID crisis has been cut in half, down in half in just 3 weeks. Still too many cases. Still we have to be on the alert. But to be clear, this is a dramatic decline.
The U.S. continues to lead the world in confirmed cases and deaths. 1 out of 5 Americans have been infected with the virus at some point. In Atlanta, Charles Watson, Fox News.
The Cornell Cooperative Extension of Steuben County is providing free KN95 masks and rapid tests to the community. This comes after the organization received supplies from the Steuben County Health Department. Residents can either pick up masks and tests or set them aside for someone else. Residents are asked to call or email Cornell Cooperative to order supplies. World leaders are engaging in some whirlwind diplomacy, desperately trying to defuse the soaring tensions along the Ukrainian border, where it looks like Russia is ready to mount an attack at any time. Germany's chancellor holding an in-person talk with President Biden today, while French President Emmanuel Macron meeting with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, in a push for diplomacy. Lauren Blanchard in Washington with more.
Monday, this video showing U.S. troops touching down in Poland. In total, 1,700 paratroopers from Fort Bragg will arrive there. President Biden continues to beef up America's presence in allies near Ukraine. On the Russian border, Moscow has built up 100,000 troops, 3/4 of what they need to invade.
If you look at the buildup of the forces, Russia could be able to actually have sufficient forces for a serious invasion.
Multiple sources say the Joint Chiefs chairman has warned Congress if Russia does invade, Ukraine's capital could fall in 72 hours.
We are in the window. Any day now, Russia could take military action against Ukraine. If war breaks out, it will come at an enormous human cost to Ukraine.
Still, the diplomacy efforts continue. New German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is meeting with President Biden. In Moscow, French President Emmanuel Macron is meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, though the Russians say little will come of it.
The situation is too complex to expect a decisive breakthrough after just one meeting.
On the meetings, analysts say
this all gives advantage to Putin, in my judgment.
Others argue NATO allies need to step up more, and President Biden needs to make that clear.
We need to know if NATO allies are actually in the fight with us. We can't help these countries more than they want to help themselves.
President Biden and Chancellor Scholz will discuss the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline between Russia and Germany. Moscow has been warned it will be canceled if it invades. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
An explosion destroys a Phoenix home, and a neighbor's Ring camera captured the blast. Stephanie Bennett has the story.
It just went into little tiny pieces, the whole house.
Betty Bull has lived in this quiet neighborhood for more than 25 years, and she's seen a lot of change. But last night's home explosion was definitely a first. It all captured on this home Ring camera.
It certainly wasn't a small house. And to think that in a couple of seconds that the whole thing could be blown into tiny bits. They say there is nothing left of that house.
Inside her stunning home now lays shattered glass, shards smashed on the floor and sprouting dangerously in all directions. She had no idea of what was going on.
It was these pieces of glass screeching against each other. And I thought, what is happening? No one's even been near those windows.
Windows broken in all the houses around it, foundation damage there. It was a substantial explosion.
Another neighbor, Ron Schaefer, lives below the home explosion. He says he was watching TV at the time of the blast.
Ran outside and white smoke ran that way. Pieces of the roof were in the road. The house was already gone, 3/4 gone, big flames.
The skyline in this North Phoenix neighborhood will forever be altered after the home exploded and then caught fire Saturday night. In total, 9 other residencies were impacted. Phoenix fire crews worked through the night and all day Sunday, assessing the damage. Pieces of the roof, walls, and insulation blanketed the neighborhood.
Yeah, we're going to have it inspected because everybody's finding damage that untrained eyes can't see, but I think we're safe because we were below the explosion.
Still ahead tonight, strict COVID-19 procedures at the 2022 Winter Olympics. Many who test positive being whisked away to an isolation hotel.
I'm not sure I can handle 14 more days.
More on why these facilities are coming under fire, plus the new promises to provide athletes with better care and more resources.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
All right, thanks again for checking in as we take a look at your local forecast. I'm meteorologist Todd Nelson, and looking at a pretty quiet overnight. 18 degrees when you head out the door on Tuesday. Average low for us in this early to mid-February is 15, and our sunrise on Tuesday is at 7:11. Heading into Tuesday, temperatures will be a little cooler than what we had today. High temperature around 30 degrees. Again, average is 35, and sunset at 4:30. By the way, we picked up almost an hour and 15 minutes of daylight since the December solstice there, the winter solstice on December 21st, and a little more than 4.5 weeks from now we'll actually be springing ahead with that time change in early March. So how about that? Spring is really not that far away. Temperatures again will be a little bit cooler on Tuesday after a milder Monday. Partly sunny skies will carry over into Wednesday. We might see a little bit of a light rain snow mix here heading into Thursday as a clipper system moves in from the Great Lakes, but any accumulations we would see with that would be pretty minor. And again, Wednesday will be above average once again. So again, this active northwesterly flow continues. We're not going to see much in terms of any precipitation here unless you're heading north to the Finger Lakes. Could have some very minor accumulations heading into Tuesday. We'll call it a light coating. That'll be about it. Again, warmer as we head into Wednesday out ahead of that next clipper that slides in as we approach that Thursday time period for us. But tonight we'll have some quiet conditions, 18 degrees. Could see some patchy freezing fog in those prone locations here, so be advised of that as you're heading out on early Tuesday morning. Temperatures to the north could be closing in on 20 degrees here and there. Across the region, again, some patchy freezing fog. When you factor in the wind, it will feel more like the teens across much of the region. Definitely warmer than it was last week, of course, in the wake of that big winter storm that brought us some sleet, snow, and even some icing. Your day planner on Tuesday showing some clouds in the morning, sunnier skies into the afternoon. By 5 p.m., we'll have a light westerly wind at around 5 miles per hour, but a daytime high right around 30 degrees. And again, that will be cooler than your average high of 35 degrees. Could see some upper 20s with some light snow showers again to the north. The farther south you get, we'll have a little bit more sunshine. Wednesday, a little bit warmer. Daytime highs climbing into the lower 40s for some. Some sunshine in the morning, and then we'll see skies eventually cloud back up. Just wanted to mention this here too. From the 12th to the 16th here over the eastern Great Lakes region, we are getting indications that temperatures will be once again below average. So pretty mild, at least through the week ahead. Much warmer than it was last week, of course. A light wintry mix on Thursday. Could change to snow on Friday. Maybe some very minor accumulations and a light rain chance again on Saturday before we cool down on Sunday in the wake of that system down to 22 and some sunshine.
Strict COVID-19 procedures at the 2022 Winter Olympics mean every participant must take a daily PCR test, with those testing positive being whisked away by ambulance to an isolation hotel. Jackie Ibanez has more on why these facilities are coming under fire.
I'm not sure I can handle 14 more days.
Meltdowns at the 2022 Winter Olympics, with a number of athletes and other participants raising concerns over isolation hotels, facilities where anyone involved in the games must go to quarantine if they test positive for the virus.
Not knowing when you're getting out of this room is it's something else.
Once inside the isolation facility, the only way out is by testing negative or being cleared by a medical official. But while participants wait for their release, many have raised concerns about the size and cleanliness of their room, the food they're provided, and how the extreme loneliness is impacting their mental health.
I cannot choose when I want to leave. I cannot choose what to eat. I cannot choose when I get my food.
But members of the International Olympic Committee are now promising immediate improvements.
Let's be thorough, very thorough in the future to make sure that internet connections, food, size of the rooms, equipment for training, everything is perfect for these athletes.
Meanwhile, participants who aren't in mandatory isolation are still witnessing what looks like a scene from a sci-fi movie, as hospitality workers don hazmat suits and robots create greater opportunities for social distancing. As of Sunday, officials say at least 363 people involved in the Olympics have tested positive for COVID-19.
Spotify podcast host Joe Rogan is facing more controversy after clips of him using racial slurs resurface. Chris DeMeo has more on Rogan's apology and how Spotify is handling the backlash.
I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly.
Podcast host Joe Rogan sparking new outrage after videos showing him repeatedly saying the N-word have resurfaced.
It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together.
The host of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast on Spotify issuing an apology over the weekend while also explaining why he chose to say the N-word in the first place.
when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand.
More than 100 episodes of Rogan's podcast have been since removed from Spotify. And in a letter to company employees, CEO Daniel Ek says Rogan's comments do not represent Spotify's values, but that, quote, I do not believe that silencing Joe is the answer. Ek is, however, investing $100 million to help promote music and audio from historically marginalized groups. The backlash comes after a number of musicians, including Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, recently removed their music from Spotify after accusing Rogan of promoting false information about COVID-19 vaccines on his podcast.
The controversy around Joe Rogan is a test case for Spotify, and it's a really difficult balancing act.
Going forward, Spotify says it will include content warnings ahead of any COVID-19 related podcast.
An officer in Maryland saves a middle school student from being hit by an oncoming car. Officer Annette Goodyear was directing traffic when the student entered the crosswalk. Despite her signaling to stop, the oncoming vehicle did not comply. Goodyear quickly pushed the student out of the way, but she was hit. The officer was taken to the hospital with minor injuries and later released. The driver was cited for negligent driving and other traffic violations. The NFL has issued a memo regarding its track record on racial diversity in coaching positions. The statement comes just a few days after the league said a lawsuit filed by a former coach alleging racial discrimination was without merit. Christina Coleman has the latest.
The NFL responding to allegations of racial discrimination in its coaching hires. The league issuing a memo this weekend to all 32 teams calling the results of its diversity efforts unacceptable. The memo comes on the heels of a lawsuit filed against the NFL by former Dolphins coach Brian Flores, who was fired last month despite back-to-back winning seasons with Miami.
So that's a situation where he wasn't even given a legitimate opportunity, a fair opportunity to succeed, yet he still did, and then he was terminated.
Flores says his subsequent interviews with other teams weren't legitimate, but instead were done to comply with the league's Rooney Rule, which requires that clubs interview at least one minority candidate for open jobs. Flores accused Broncos exec John Elway of showing up to his interview hungover. Elway called those claims false and defamatory. Flores also said the New York Giants brought him in to interview despite having already made the decision to hire someone else.
He had similar experiences to what a lot of black coaches have said throughout the league, that they have felt when they do interviews for these positions that they are not being given a fair shake, and they're just being done to check a box.
Flores attorneys say the league's memo is a PR ploy and that no one from the NFL has reached out to them since the lawsuit was filed. Despite the suit, Flores says he still hopes to coach again in the NFL. Of the league's 12 head coaching vacancies over the last 2 years, one has been filled by a minority candidate and none by black coaches.
Super Bowl 56 is this next Sunday in SoFi Stadium in Southern California, and it won't be cheap to see the big game in person. Ticket IQ data says the cheapest ticket is $5,300 in lower level seats, and even if you can get into a 24-person luxury suite, it'll cost $906,000 a seat. Secondary market average ticket prices are more than $900,000. Tickets will likely fall to their lowest prices the day before and the day of the big game. McDonald's former CEO says inflation is driving the restaurant industry, quote, absolutely crazy. Ed Renzi says inflation is affecting restaurants all over the country and product prices have increased substantially. He adds the ongoing truck driver shortage is affecting the issue even further. Renzi says inflationary pressures will stay throughout 2022, with their sales falling short of estimates. The industry keeps getting hit by the ongoing pandemic, higher costs, and labor shortages, especially impacting smaller businesses. Still waiting to work on a better diet for a healthy new year? Health experts have some suggestions. Experts in nutrition are recommending some common and not so common foods to help you in 2022. Shiitake mushrooms are low-cal, help reduce inflammation and raise your immune system. Sweet potatoes have fiber and clean your intestines. Jicama, a type of turnip, helps excessive blood sugar and is good in smoothies. Kimchi, a Korean fermented food, helps decrease blood cholesterol. Broccoli can reduce inflammation and help fight cancer too. And green peas are good for protein as well as cancer fighting. We want to leave you with a smile and maybe a laugh tonight. Velveeta Cheese quickly jumped in on a recent art event for fun. Days after German artist Nicholas Costello put up a massive gold cube, reportedly worth $11.7 million, on display in Central Park to promote cryptocurrency, Velveeta followed with cheesebox art. It's called Liquid Gold Cube, greater than solid gold cube. An 8-foot Velveeta box also on display in the park. Velveeta, which is made by Kraft, says you don't have to live rich to be golden. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.